Well, hello again. Welcome back to Peak Human Podcast. I'm Brian Sanders. Glad to be back for another week with my new format where in the beginning, all I do is talk about the episode, who we're talking to, what we talk about, and then we go straight into the interview. Today, I'm talking to Calley Means, who's great. I just realized his sister is Dr. Calley Means, who is great as well, doing some big things in the health space. And he's also co-founded a company called TrueMed with Justin Mares, a local Austin guy, also doing great things. So he is connected with the right people, doing cool things. He himself has a history of working at these big food companies, and he got an inside scoop on all the craziness and shenanigans they're up to. Really good inside look at their nefarious ways, how they spend tons of money to deceive people, how they use lobbying, how they use studies, how they use the big Sickcare system against people. Really fascinating stuff. He's got a lot of great facts and figures and stats to back up all of this stuff to show all the shadiness that's going on. He's also writing a book. He's writing a book about all this with his sister, which I'm looking forward to. Really, the incentives are misaligned with our entire world, and that's why things are the way they are. And we talk about those things, how we can reverse this, how we can change the incentives, how we can keep people healthy instead of trying to put Band-Aids on the problem when it's too late. As you all know, it starts with food and diet and lifestyle. So really great episode. I think you'll like this one. Make sure to share it with family and friends. Give it a review on iTunes or any other podcast app, and enjoy this one with Calley Means. All right, here we go. Calley, how's it going?
It's going great, Brian. Excited to chat.
Absolutely. It's been a long time coming. We just figured out that I know of your sister, who's a great doctor. I had no idea until you just told me, and I just heard you mention her on another podcast, and I didn't put it together. So sorry for that.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I'm just following in her footsteps. The whole family's on a war against food. My dad is also writing op-eds attacking food. We all used to be, conservative and trust in the system, but now we've all been radicalized and on the warpath.
Well, that's great. Yeah. So her name is Dr. Calley Means. You're Calley Means. You are doing great stuff. People may have heard of you online. You've been everywhere lately. You went on Russell Brand's show. What else did you do?
It's interesting. It's been a lot of the independent media. So Breaking Points, which I'm a huge fan of, Cigar and Crystal Ball, Barry Weiss, who's just a warrior on searching for truth. It's been so gratifying. I got into this fight really being radicalized in a good way by my sister. We can talk about her journey and a lot of the health podcasts, Sean Stevenson, Mark Hyman and others, and have gone on their podcast, which has been awesome. And then a lot of Fox News, Fox News 10 times or so in the last 2 months, which is interesting because this is the bipartisan issue of our time. And it just is interesting with the mainstream media, with some of the other networks. The number one funder of news in this country is pharma, and the top one is food. And they're not touching it, a lot of the mainstream ones, but everyone else, is I think catching on to that this is a big issue. We're getting sick for a simple reason, which is just because of food. And then we're going to go bankrupt because of a healthcare system that profits off that. It doesn't talk about the reasons we're getting sick, because that would lose them money.
Well, you just recapped our whole podcast. No, I love it though.
It's a lot to unpack.
Exactly. Now that's what we're going to do. And you have a lot of great statistics. So that's good. It's always good to have those on hand, and you do a great job of whipping those out. All right, guys, sorry for interrupting the show, but I need to talk about nosetotale.org, which is how this show is possible. I sponsor my own podcast. Yes, I don't want to take any outside influence, but to make this show possible, we need to support Nose to Tail and my ranchers here in Texas. They do great work. They do the regenerative practices. This is the top of the line stuff, the best meat you can get. We also have the organs mixed in. This is the handiest thing, the best way to get organ meats, liver, heart, kidney, and spleen right in the ground beef, right in the other meats as well. So handy, so easy, so tasty. This is how I get my organ meats. I think it's great. You can get seasonings along with it. We also have body care products. Super excited about our new hair care products, Hair Hold and Hair Food. So it's a conditioning one and a more beeswax styling one. Really great, smells delicious, smells amazing. We got the deodorant, animal-based deodorant. No funny stuff under your arms. You don't want that weird stuff like aluminum. No chance. We got just the clean ingredients. So check out our body care products also at nosetotail.org. Get your meat boxes delivered to you, straight to your door if you're in the 48 states. You can also check out our biltong, our dried meat. We have a version with liver in it as well, 30% liver. Another good way to get your organs. So thanks for supporting us. We're a small business. We get the highest quality products. We get them straight out to you. You can also go to sapien.org. Get your free food and lifestyle guide. Super simple stuff, easy to follow. I just updated it. You can get that at sapien.org. Get yourself started with all this. Get your health journey going. And come join us in Austin. Come to KetoCon. This is next week. We have a great party, the Great Austin Hoedown. Super excited about this. Go to sapienscenter.com if you want to RSVP to this party. It's going to be amazing. 250 people. We're going to have a VIP area with some of the speakers of the conference like Sean Baker, Mike Mutzel, Jamie Seaman, people like that. They will be in the VIP area if you want to get one of those tickets. So look forward to seeing you soon. And back to the show.
Yeah, it is interesting that the mainstream news won't cover this. Fox does tend to do it more, even though they are mainstream. But you have to go to alternative shows to really get the real truth these days.
It's really interesting. I mean, I as I've been talking about, and Casey, my sister, was kind of the traditional path, and we were all proud of her. President of her Stanford undergrad class, top of her class, Stanford med school, residency. She had all the credentials, and is the logical kind of person to be talking about these things. I came from a different background. We both grew up in DC, but I got into the swamp, into politics. Working with politicians, working with media, on public policy issues. And it is really interesting. I still have a lot of friends in media and people from the major networks who are friends have told me off the record, it's like, we don't touch negative food or negative pharma stories. These are all big conglomerates, connected to, to a lot of different networks. It's like the number one advertiser for Nickelodeon is food companies. Food companies are a huge advertiser for news networks. As I said, pharma is number one. And it's just, I think there's so much gaslighting going on, but I think we all just need to really use common sense. It's like, if your number one advertiser is, a product, that really makes money off metabolic dysfunction, loses money when we expose and talk about metabolic dysfunction, which the news should be doing because it's the number one, I think, issue in the world right now. That's going to influence coverage, and that's what people are telling me. I don't agree with everything Tucker Carlson or folks on Fox say, but they are covering this night after night, and I think it's because because so much stuff shifted during COVID, and they were the only station that kind of talked about maybe it's not maybe it's not a pharmaceutical product that is our savior. Maybe that's part of it, but maybe we actually should be thinking about exercise or food. And that was a very disruptive message, a message that pharma didn't like. And I think there was a severing with the conservative media. I never would have expected it. I never would have expected it's become a partisan issue to exercise and eat healthy. And then that's the root of health. But it has, unfortunately, it's becoming that, which is sad. But I do commend Fox for covering this night after night.
Yes, and that's funny because I was trying to post something on Instagram right before we started this, and it was that I was making fun of why it's political. There's this video of this girl calling out, "Oh, if you're liberal, you do Oatly, you do like the fake meats, you eat whole grains,
Right.
and if you're conservative, you eat red meat and real butter." And I'm like, why is this political?
Yeah. It's something I'm thinking about a lot. It just the first thing at the highest level, you never would have expected this. I mean, somebody that, was distrustful of pharma, that went to farmers markets, that takes psychedelics and doesn't trust SSRIs and, goes to functional medicine doctors, 5 years ago and before, that would have been somebody that's a liberal. Now that's a conservative. I would say it's interesting. I think this really is a uniting issue. I think actually human beings from both sides and all political persuasions and all, different backgrounds are waking up to this because they have kids. And kids are absolutely getting wrecked right now. 50% close to it is are obese or overweight. 25% prediabetes rates. And then I liken it to me. I mean, I have a young son. I'm worried about him, and my mom died of a metabolic condition, pancreatic cancer tied to prediabetes. So it's like we all kind of, and I'm trying to prevent issues. So it's like I think everyone's dealing with that. For some strange reason, it's just become a political virtue on particularly the professional left to blindly trust pharmaceutical and food companies. And I just never would have expected that. And it's something we need to be aware of. And again, we'll dive into this, but it's just tracing the money when pharma is donating 5 times more money than the oil industry to politicians. When pharma is, as we talked about, by far the number one giver of money and spender on advertising on news. Obviously, by far the number one spender on academic research in the country. Well over 50% of all academic research, which funnels into medical schools, which funnels into curriculums, which funnels into hospitals. That impacts incentives. So we're really dealing with that, and it's a huge issue.
Well, it's obvious, yes. Where the money goes, that's where people's opinions go, and it's impossible to disentangle those. That's why I didn't take any advertisers for 4 or 5 years on my podcast. I kind of barely did a little bit recently, but really it's just I wanted to start my own company so I didn't have to take advertisers because I knew no matter what, it would be a bias, right? It'd be subconscious, or I'm like, oh, I can't talk about this because maybe this is gonna, look bad for them. So I get that.
It really is nefarious and subtle. In the political world, it's like, I think about just the mindset of a politician. At the end of the day, they want their, folks and their constituents to be employed. And I think there's this really problematic dynamic we've had where healthcare is now the most employed industry in the country. I mean, like when you're driving down the highway, I'm in Texas, around the South, there's billboards and they're like, we need nurses, nurse jobs available. There was one sign, it was like, no criminal background check or something. And it was just like, it's just like, there's such an insatiable, this amoeba of healthcare is just growing. It's 20% of the economy. It's the most employed industry. And then for politicians, it blinds them from the key question that, like, is the growth of this industry correlated with good outcomes? No, we're all getting sicker or fatter, more depressed, more infertile. But to them, it's become a jobs program. So I was recently at an event in Texas where the Governor Abbott, who's done some good things in Texas, and I'm a fan of what's happening in Texas. But on this one, he was giving a speech and he was bragging that the Texas Medical Center, the huge hospital in Houston, is like, I think, the largest square footage hospital in the country, if not the world. And he mentioned that you could almost see it from space, or by some angles you can see it from space. And it was like clapping because it's like jobs.
There's so many people sick.
Yeah, it's like that's not good. Like the fact, like you go to any city and the biggest building in the city is inevitable. I was just in Cleveland. I was in St. Louis for some weddings in the past year, cities that it's kind of Orwellian. These cities are kind of these models of former American greatness, and every building is disheveled except for just towering brand new children's hospitals or cardiology centers, or these towering things. And those are buildings that the politicians, they go to the ribbon cutting ceremony. Both parties talk about how it's great, these jobs and this innovation. They literally talk at the ribbon cutting ceremonies about how this new, children's liver transplant center is a result of, an example of American innovation. No. This is not good. It's not good that we have bigger and bigger children's hospitals. We should not celebrate. We're building massive liver transplant centers for kids.
No one's asking why kids have fatty liver. And this is absolutely crazy. Yeah. You got to shake yourself loose sometimes. I think the problem is It's just like the slow move of society, and no one thinks about it except for wackos like us.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, you've been in this. I'm just, so happy to be a new foot soldier in this fight that you've been plowing. And I do think, we're wackos and have been radicalized, but I'm sure you're seeing this too. There's more and more people getting radicalized. I mean, from what I'm seeing, it's a lot of parents. Going on this podcast and going on others, it's been fun. It's been a dream to kind of communicate these issues, but I try to do a little bit of meditation. It's like, I am truly worried about my kid, like 15% fatty liver disease, 25% prediabetes, 50%, overweight or obese for kids. It's like, the kids are going into a buzzsaw right now. And it's an honor to try to communicate that. And it seems like a lot of, particularly parents or people without kids, it's just like, I think framing it around kids to me is just like, it's resonating with people, because it's just unacceptable, because they're also defenseless. It's like, I'm a libertarian guy, I'm a free market guy, but it's just like the idea of that people are lazy, or that it's a full kind of personal responsibility thing. Obviously, this is a bottoms up revolution that needs to happen. We all need to eat well, work out, all those things. And that's very important. That's a personal responsibility. But like, it's also, there's a systemic like problem. Like, kids haven't become like lazier in the past 50 years and have and also I think the American people, I don't think the American people have become just like complete lazy, like people are trying to kill themselves systematically. That hasn't like dramatically changed in the past 50 years. I think we really have a systemic like problem that we need to all be radicalized on.
Well, that's what I've been talking about. I'm trying to write a paper on it. I have a couple guys helping me right now, actually,
Nice.
on this exact topic. We are not lazy slobs all of a sudden. Yeah, I love that graph of the uptick in obesity in 1980. And I always ask people like the calorie bros, I'm like, what happened in 1980? Everyone just decided to become a slob and lazy and just not do anything and not count calories anymore? You think everyone just decided that at once? Or did the whole food system change? Was that like, an inflection point when processed foods took over and people, always try to work out? And there is a baseline of movement that people have. And I like Herman Pontzer's research. If you've heard of him, he studied the Hadza, and he found that the calorie expenditure is constrained, and that these Hadza men and women, men especially going out hunting all day, didn't burn that many more calories than an average American. Like, it was like 100 calories. It's insane. It's mind blowing, but this is really, good data in the literature.
Interesting.
That they don't burn that many more calories. And it's kind of saying, and I'm trying to do some then and now data. I call it, because no one's done this in the research. I've looked for it. It's like, what were we doing in the 50s, 60s, 70s when people were thin, and what are we doing now? And comparing those. And I post these things online, and people think, oh yeah, everyone did manual labor back then. Like, are you kidding? In the 60s and 70s? No. What do you mean? We had cars and office jobs. This was not different. People are like, oh, but we have iPads now and everyone's just sitting around. Like, well, not really. You still have to go move around, and you still like walk to the car. Like, it's actually not that different. Like, I've looked up the data.
Gosh, I think that is so important. It's a topic. I can't wait to read your work on that. And it's a topic I've really been thinking about. My sister and I got onto this issue. I previously had an e-commerce company. I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years after, my being disenfranchised with politics, and my sister dropping out of residency after realizing everything she was doing surgery on was related to inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, which she didn't learn about in medical school. She bravely quit, started Levels Health, which is helping people manage their glucose. But, been on this journey, but writing a book with her now about metabolic health. I'm thinking a second book could really be about just tracing, as exactly as you're saying, like almost like what happened in the 60s, what happened evolutionarily. And what's interesting, the framework I have, just going back, a couple generations before the 60s, this kind of mythical like hunter-gatherer, it's just like there was no exercise.
There was no gyms. There was no jogging. Jogging was like invented in the 70s or something. Anchorman, it's so funny. There's this new thing called yogging. It's like, no, they didn't just go jogging back then.
They did never. That would be so weird. And they all had six pack, everyone was healthy, look at these pictures even in the 60s. So I just, and you look at us as animals, right? It's like tigers and lions and like wolves in the wild. They don't go jogging.
Mhm.
Like they're
Yeah.
very fit. And it's just like, actually, I just find it fascinating, right? The humans and animals we've domesticated and feed our crap and kind of accustomed to our lifestyle, they're the only animals that have systematic obesity, depression, metabolic dysfunction. It's like a wolf in the wild, has close to a 0% obesity rate and a close to a 0% cancer rate. A dog that we've domesticated has a more than 50% chance of getting cancer, huge obesity rates, and then more than 50% of dogs have depression. There's not many depressed wolves in the wild or giraffes or tigers, in the wild, and they're not like doing these ridiculous. So I that's something I'm kind of trying to unpack in my head because it's like we've kind of been set up for failure. It's like, we've totally just kind of warped our biological evolutionary needs. And then it's like everyone's being shamed for like not taking more money and time out of their day to do like these habits that are basically replacing the biological evolutionary needs that we just had as part of our lives. Like the sun, like inside is a new concept for 99.99% of human history. There was no inside. We just were
Yeah.
outside. We had sunlight in the eyes. There was dark when it was when the sun went down. Our bodies are evolved over millions of years primarily because of the sun. We're on a 24-hour clock. It's like we literally in the medical system, when Casey was talking about sunlight or talking about nutrition or talking about, these are like core biological evolutionary needs. She was told by doctors at Stanford, who were training her, they said, quote, "Don't be a pussy." They said that's pseudoscience.
Oh my
like
God.
like we've just so we've taken away these biological needs. And I actually really sympathize with the American people, and I've struggled with this too. It's like buy a cold plunge, pay for the exercise, buy air purifiers, but it's all of these things that are actually like just should be evolutionary needs that are hacks. I think that's actually kind of being angry about that has helped me on my habits because we are in kind of a messed up situation, and we do need to actually replace, what's been taken away. And that actually mindset shift has led me actually to better exercise habits and really being more curious and actually getting better water filters and all this stuff. But we should be kind of angry, and we should be kind of angry in a way, that we're being shamed for these things. These are never things that people had to do. And there's also, I think this is worth more research and it's something I'm diving into, but unpacking this idea that there's been like just these medical miracles and this, vast increase in life expectancy and happiness. When you really dig, I don't think that's quite as true. In the past 100 years, life expectancy has skyrocketed, but that is almost predominantly because of acute medical innovations
Mhm.
for acute things that were going to kill you right away. A burst appendix. Giving birth to a child 120 years ago for a woman was the most dangerous act a human could do. It was more dangerous to give birth to a child 120 years ago than it is to have breast cancer today. Like we did some great things where it's like if you were imminently about to die, there's certain, and 100%, if you have a burst appendix, a complicated childbirth, a gunshot wound, like 100%, like go to like
Mhm.
we have a miracle medical system. The problem is that now 90% of our costs are around chronic conditions, and chronic conditions and the trillions we spend on chronic conditions has lowered life expectancy. Life expectancy is now going down. And I think
In
people
the
are becoming less
US.
happy. I think there's studies on this, but if you trace happiness over previous generations, we're not at a good place right now. And we're not at a great place on health span, on productive years. I mean, those have been plummeting. So I think that's just me as a guy defending the system early on. And you talk to a lot of our smart friends, they're like, "Oh, the medical system, it's done great things." I would really question that. I think we've been gaslighted a lot. Like we've lost our way to a
Yeah.
large degree.
That's so true. I like the phrase, "We're not living longer, we're dying longer." I don't know if someone coined that or I mean, that's just what's going on. Yeah, and then I just found, yeah, that the life expectancy is going down in the US, but the other countries, it's fine,
Yeah.
right? The other countries, it's fine. The US, of comparable countries, we're the worst. There there's so much going on. I'm glad. You brought up Levels, Casey. That's awesome. I love Levels. They're
Mm.
doing great stuff with continuous glucose monitors. I gotta have Casey on for sure. She's been on my list for a while.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm glad you guys are writing a book. And yeah, I'm trying to go back through all the things that we just talked about. I want to go back even to the beginning. That's where we'll go, because we have a similar story. I lost both my parents. That's how my journey began 8-9 years ago. And I changed what I ate. So both my parents, now looking back, I realized they had prediabetes. No one told them, nothing about it. And then all of a sudden they get these chronic diseases, Alzheimer's, cancers. These things are from your diet and lifestyle, and more gaslighting, in the mainstream media, pretending that's not what it is. We just need more pills and medications. No one's going to talk about the root cause, but you have a similar story. So tell me more. You did mention briefly about your mom.
Yeah. This is how I frame it, and hopefully this is resonant, because I think it's applicable to almost everybody or their parents. So I'll give the story of my mom's health history. So she was a vibrant woman, our best friend, just the life of the party and the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known, and considered very healthy throughout her life. So she gave birth to me, her first child, and I was almost 12 pounds, and she was getting high fives at the hospital about that. Oh, a big baby, this is amazing. And then it's like, oh, before that, she's like, oh, gestational diabetes, that's normal. And this was, and she'd given a pill, and oh, a big baby, that's fine. And I think that started it. And I think this is very important because, a lot of close people to me right now, on our age, right, are dealing with infertility and dealing with chronic fatigue or insomnia or depression or anxiety. These things are all just kind of like these things that healthy people get. They're kind of like brushed aside. Oh, that's normal. Take a pill, do this. It's like what that was when I was born. My large weight was a sign. Large weight babies are a blaring warning sign that the mother has metabolic dysfunction. Obviously, gestational diabetes is a sign, but it was like, oh, it's no big deal. Several years later, my mom has high cholesterol. Well, that's normal. I think it's like 40% of men over 40 are on a statin. It's like the most prescribed drug. It's like, your levels are a little high, statin. A couple of years later, she's dealt with her blood sugar. Oh, in blood sugar high, it's a little fasting glucose, metformin. Years later, high blood pressure. 30% of women your age are on. Here's a pill. So I think, the average American goes through their lives, they visit, I think it's over 17 different specialists of doctors. There's like, it's like over 10 prescriptions per American per year. The fact that my mom was, on a statin, this is all normal. It's normal for people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. It's the rites of passage. And the fact that we don't see these symptoms, see these biomarkers, and 93% of the country, as you talked about, is metabolically dysfunctional, and has some kind of biomarker of metabolic dysfunction. This is just common, and it's so common. It's just like, okay, this is normal. Take a pill. We need to have more curiosity about our symptoms, because any one of those points, you could actually explain why high triglycerides are representations of your cells malfunctioning, which is totally reversible. You could actually explain why high blood pressure is a clear example of your body not working correctly that will lead to more downstream issues if it's not addressed in a root cause way rather than just superficially with a pill. You can explain why fasting glucose, of course, and levels measuring this with a continuous glucose monitor. I think it's one of the most important biomarkers. That's literally your mitochondria is malfunctioning. It's your body being overwhelmed with glucose, which is our fuel, but we're eating 100 times more sugar than we did 100 years ago. It's overloading our cells, mitochondria kicking it out. It's actually like literally it's the biomarker of our cells malfunctioning. And most people have it. And I don't think most diabetes doctors who graduated, I have friends who graduated from Harvard and Stanford. I don't even think they could even explain that. Most of medical education is just pharmacology. It's like, if the levels are this high, prescribe this, do this. So anyway, that's the path I'm on, and why, with Casey, and kind of my political background and seeing my mom, why I think this is the biggest issue in the world. And I think the path my sister and I are on to some degree is to preach that message that we have completely lost our way, to not see symptoms as gifts, to probe on the underlying metabolic dysfunction, which we can only solve with food, sleep, exercise, chronic stress management, the basics, which we actually, that is easier to do than having a lifetime of chronic disease. And there are public policy solutions from the top down to encourage those things. We have this idea that it's hard. It's not hard. What's happening right now, where 93% of the country's metabolic dysfunctional, we're going bankrupt from healthcare costs. We're becoming a fat and fertile, depressed civilization.
That's hard. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where I take it from my mom. She ended up getting, having a pain in her stomach, going to the doctor, doing a scan, realizing that this metabolic dysfunction, what caused her pancreatic cancer, which is highly correlated to prediabetes. The doctors at Stanford that treated her, she had 13 days. She lived after that diagnosis. She died very quickly. Said it was unlucky. And what I think is very important to understand is that most forms of cancer aren't unlucky. They're very preventable. Like, they're as preventable with not having prediabetes as not smoking is to preventing lung cancer. Like, there's direct relationships to many leading forms of cancer and blood sugar dysregulation. Alzheimer's is now called type 3 diabetes. You can almost make a blanket statement that if you don't have prediabetes or diabetes, you almost certainly will not get Alzheimer's. And you can also do dramatic things to actually reverse. There's crazy research coming out. Alzheimer's, and you've probably seen the book Brain Energy by Chris Palmer, but like schizophrenia and other like serious brain conditions, increasingally research, and these are good studies from Harvard. A lot of the medical studies are totally corrupt coming from there and other places, showing that these serious brain issues, such as schizophrenia, are actually metabolic conditions. So anyway, that's my kind of mission on my mom, and I feel like she's living with us every day. With my sister and I trying to preach this message, but we've got to become more curious about the symptoms and not normalize the fact that so many people are on so many different medications for what's essentially the same thing, which is metabolic dysfunction.
It's huge. I called it, it's a warning sign. Your body has a warning sign, like a warning light, like a car. And I haven't talked about a lot about this. I wanted to make one day, and if I ever have time, I'm making little YouTube videos, explainer videos, and, talking about these little topics. Excuse me. Your body has a warning light, and usually anyone in the mainstream just completely doesn't look at it. This is exactly what you're talking about. If you have even GERD, you have indigestion, you have what's the other name for it? Like heartburn. Like, right. This is a warning sign. People don't understand. This is your body warning light. You have type 2 diabetes. You have the spare tire around your belly. You have even depression. There's a million of these symptoms. These are the warning lights. And instead of treating them, people are putting duct tape over the lights in the car. It's absolutely insane when you think about it like this. Most people I know, they understand it's a completely opposite system. It's our opposite way of thinking about this. It's that, I'm not going to just go get antacids because I have heartburn. I have to look at what I'm eating. Of course, I used to have this. These are one of the many things that went away once I changed my diet. I used to have all the heartburn all the time. Never had it since. Just changed my diet. Never once. It's just gone. So many things are gone. And it's because you listen to it as a warning light, and the system is the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think we've been gaslighted so much that, we talk to friends, I'm sure you do, right, in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And it's so common. They say, I'm pretty healthy. This health stuff. It's like, I don't need to read that book by Robert Lustig, or, I'm fine. And I think that's one of the biggest gaslighting jobs and lies, in America. And it's really just, coming from a kind of a background early on where I helped these companies try to impact public opinion. It's like, it's extraordinary what they've done. We're not healthy. we've normalized these things that shouldn't be normalized. We've completely normalized, chronic anxiety and depression. I mean, 25% of adult women in the United States right now are on a 25% of women in the United States right now are on an SSRI. Now, I'm not like just completely anti-drug. I think we totally lost our way with siloing diseases, which are really the same thing. And, having somebody that has, inflammation, depression, headaches, prediabetes, high blood pressure, the fact that they're on, 7 different pills is a disaster because it's basically the same thing that can be, reversed with food interventions much more cheaply and much more effectively. But and maybe there are some places for SSRIs, although I'm becoming more skeptical because the science is completely damning them. But the fact that 25% of the country is like on, particularly women, are on a medication that numbs you from the world. I mean, that is like a societal development that is like notable that I think is under discussed. I mean, this is a psychoactive drug that like a huge percentage of the United States is taking like on a regular basis. It's like that's been totally normalized. like it's actually like crazy to me when you think about it. Like how we're not like it's like it should be urgently discussed. Again, not even a value judgment. It's just a factor like that. So many people's their reality, their brain is which interprets reality and their happiness is being clouded. But that's been normalized. Obviously, as we talked about, taking a statin, it's like, people, if someone's popping a statin and a metformin, they'll still say they're healthy. It's just like, that's not even an eye blank. 30% of doctors' visits are around just ambiguous complaints about sluggishness and low energy. It's like, that's been normalized. So infertility, to me, which is actually the biggest alarm, are literally like our core evolutionary function is declining at like a rapid rate. Like, could there be a bigger warning sign that our procreation ability is being denigrated to like an astounding degree, to male sperm count plummeting like 50% plus in a generation, to female infertility, PCOS skyrocketing? It's up to 25% of women. Miscarriages going up almost exponentially. I mean, there's like it's like our bodies are trying to tell us something, but that's still considered it's normal. The system's taking care of that. Our bodies are trying to tell us something.
Yeah. And to go back to the Harvard thing, and Chris Palmer's awesome, just with him in Denver, and Dr. Georgia Ede, great too, talking about this stuff, this mental stuff, this depression, all of these things are very, very much to do with diet. And the Harvard School of Public Health is what you're talking about. They're the ones that do all the bad stuff, bad science. They're the bogus ones, but there are some good apples in there, namely Palmer and Georgia Ede. But well, okay, tell us your history though. So there's more we didn't even get into yet, because you have this political history. You have some really interesting stuff to talk about working for some of these big corporations.
Yeah. So as I said, grew up in Washington, D.C., grew up in the swamp, and had aspirations to get into politics. So went out to Stanford for college with that goal of just getting back to DC to politics. So studied economics and got right back to DC. And I'd like to say get in it for the right reasons. I really dream and care and just read constantly about American history and American competitiveness. So worked on some campaigns. And I think what's interesting, what was informative and surprising to me is that after the campaigns, I worked for John McCain. I was a big fan of him. You're inevitably go into consulting. And I was sitting with and now working with people that worked, on the Obama campaign and worked on, different sides of the aisle. We're now on the same team. And inevitably you sit across the table from the two biggest spenders in Washington, D.C., which is pharma and food. So my clients were pharma, which is the interest group for pharma, and the American Beverage Association, which is the interest group for Coke, Pepsi, and sugary drinks. And this is a little bit of retrospect, years later, and, really being radicalized and kind of understanding what's happening. But it's just so informative that I call it now the devil's bargain. of you've got food companies aggressively spending. And I think, from their self-interest, it makes sense. They want food to be cheaper and more addictive. So I actually helped create, as a junior person, create lists for the American Beverage Association of nutrition researchers at Tufts, at Harvard, at other leading schools. And a huge strategy is the donation program. And billions of dollars from Coke and other processed food companies funnel directly to universities. And you have, the head, the dean of Tufts Med School, which was one of the most illustrious, Tufts Nutrition School, one of the most illustrious nutrition programs. And he's paid not only millions of dollars, the school is completely propped up by processed food companies. Processed food companies spend 11 times more on nutritional research than the NIH. His entire school is propped up by that. He actually gets personal payments. We actually steered personal payments to him from some of the largest processed food companies. And today, he's the one who's, now done the big food compass study with the NIH, which was also funded by food companies, which says Lucky Charms are healthier than beef. He's been in the game for a long time. He actually, and many other nutrition researchers, like leading nutrition researchers, he's directly paid by the leading direct-to-consumer prescriber of Ozempic. So a lot of these people are actually taking research grants, which is the lifeblood of their work, personal payments from food companies, and Ozempic, and companies that prescribe Ozempic, which is this now miracle cure for obesity, are directly paying, consulting contracts to nutrition research. So this is what I helped orchestrate. This is not complicated, right? If you can buy people off, and it's just so ridiculous, right? And I'll just tell you, like, unimpressive people in DC and conferences are laughing about this. The thing at the end of the study saying that the money doesn't influence the study, that, the fact that we're even asking to believe that is just absurd. Companies don't spend billions of dollars on something that they don't think they're getting a return for. It would actually be illegal. It's against the fiduciary obligation of public companies. Yeah. They're not doing this decade after decade, from the sugar studies in the 70s and 60s and 80s that informed the food pyramid, the Sugar Foundation funded at Harvard, up until the food compass today, that corrupt NIH researchers who have conflicts of interest steer money to Tufts, which is also funded by food companies, who the authors are also paid directly by food companies to say that Honey Nut Cheerios are better than eggs. And the studies, by the way, and this is what I helped orchestrate, what's the point of those studies? These studies they're just not like documents to sit on the table. That study, the NIH Food Compass, the Lucky Charms study, on the press release said, what's the point of the study? The point is to influence childhood nutrition, advertising, and guidelines. So you pay for these studies and you take them and you go to schools. You go to members of Congress. I was just meeting with members of Congress, and it's been awesome to be in this fight. But they said there are lobbyists in their office every single day. They said daily with a different nutrition study. So these nutrition studies are being funded. They're being given the lobbyists. And the whole point is just confusion. It's like, oh, is sugar the problem? Is saturated fat the problem? Is it? It's like, and, then I was talking to a number of members of Congress, and they're like, well, how can we fight back against the studies? How can we know what the right studies are? I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. That question is by design what I helped orchestrate, this confusion. Just actually step back from the studies. Just ask and realize that human beings, as I said, are the only animals that are systematically obese. Yeah. We actually, it's very simple for every other animal. The only difference humans have is that you are being consciously confused by all these studies. So anyway, that I helped with food companies. Now you kind of, okay, that almost makes sense. It's like, okay, they want to kind of get their interest across the food companies. The criminal part, and I think this is what everyone needs to understand, is that food and other metabolic habits are causing devastation in our country. They're, metabolic and chronic disease conditions are 85% of medical costs, which is bankrupting our country. 8 of the 10 leading causes of death. Over 75% of deaths are tied to preventable, almost fully preventable food-based illnesses. I mean, it's a huge problem. Now, you'd expect the medical system then, who was my other main client, to ring an alarm bell. Like, why isn't the dean of Harvard Med School or the head of the NIH or Dr. Fauci, right, who ostensibly should be worried about like preventing people from getting sick? Why aren't they on a press conference every day saying that we should like have a war against sugar or encourage less sedentary behavior among kids or reform our food system and have an urgent national effort to get away from the disastrous monocropping policy that subsidizes the poison that's killing our human capital and poisoning our human capital, and have an urgent national effort on regenerative agriculture. If Dr. Fauci, the dean of Stanford Med School, the head of the NIH, and other medical leaders stood in front of Congress and had that press conference, things would change immediately.
Yeah.
And they have that option to them. They have that option to them tomorrow. But they're not doing that because every single institution of healthcare, and we can unpack this, but from medical schools to hospitals to insurance companies, which most people don't understand, to the NIH, which people don't even understand, every institution gains more power and makes more money when more people are sick for longer periods of time. So I don't even think many people even are consciously or fully realize this, but the invisible hand of the system, what's that done? That creates the Stanford Medical School doctor, telling my sister that she's being a quote pussy for asking about dietary interventions for a patient that has chronic migraines, which are highly tied to diet. Because prescribing a pill and having that person get continual comorbidities and need to manage those symptoms for the rest of their lives is highly profitable. I just talked to a leading autoimmune doctor who said, people that come in with Crohn's disease, they are absolutely explicitly forbidden to mention dietary interventions to people with Crohn's disease, because when you have Crohn's disease, the standard of care is that you have to come in every week or every other week for your entire life and get injections, which makes everyone money. That's a lifetime patient. And not learning how to eat and not having awe and understanding about the interconnectedness of your body and how autoimmune conditions are largely caused by food, not learning that and being on that journey, you're inevitably going to get other comorbidities that are going to have to be treated. So, that system is rigged. And of course, with pharma, a couple quick things. They own the medical organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Diabetes Association, that basically dictate the standard of care. The vast majority of funding comes from pharma. The majority of funding for the FDA, the majority of funding for medical schools, it all comes from pharma. So we have an intervention-based system. Interestingly, both medical schools and these groups, such as the American Diabetes Association, also accept money from Coke and other processed food companies, even though there's no bigger culprit for diabetes than sugary drinks. They accept money from Coke. So what's happened, these incentives have happened, is that the medical system is not only standing silent about food, they're actually in bed with food in a lot of ways. And then there's just been this tie where food is actually donating and involved. Most hospitals in this country still have soda machines. Most pediatric wards still have sugary drink soda machines. It's like, it's all very tied. So we're just kind of ignoring nutrition. And then the last thing I'll say, kind of where this all ties together, is that I've talked about, 11 years ago, I helped Coke or watched and worked for them as they worked to keep food stamp spending on sugary drinks. So our top nutrition program for lower income folks, the number one item bought is soda. That's ridiculous. But we basically lobbied and paid civil rights groups to racialize the issue. Say taking away sodas from underprivileged, children of color is racist, and that stayed on. Medical groups were nowhere to be found. The American Academy of Pediatrics, you'd expect, would say, why are we subsidizing Coke with the government nutrition money? We have a metabolic health crisis. But now that everyone is obese and overweight and it's an epidemic among kids, the American Academy of Pediatrics is now saying that a huge amount of 12-year-olds should be getting a lifetime injection of Ozempic. And there's a full court press on 60 Minutes and press releases and media. It's the number one talking point right now at the American Academy of Pediatrics. So nothing on the fact that we're poisoning kids, but now that we have this very dubious lifetime injection which is just another miracle cure, even though statins, metformin, SSRIs, blood pressure medications, Ambien, all these chronic treatments have actually led to more of the condition they're trying to treat. Of course, we think Ozempic is going to be some miracle drug when there's literally never been a chronic condition treatment in American history that has actually lowered rates of the chronic condition that it's trying to treat. We're being told that there's a miracle drug in the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's their main talking point because they're majority funded by pharma. So, again, maybe this isn't that surprising to people. It's what I saw. And I think, my hope is it's actually like helps people as it helped me on the road to empowerment to realize that the medical system, which has lost, I think, all moral clarity, deserves no benefit of the doubt when they're telling you or your child how to prevent a chronic condition. Chronic conditions have exploded. It's a corrupt system beyond belief. And I have a clear message. A lot of people come on and they say, well, it's complicated. Consult your doctor. I think you should consult your doctor. I do not think your doctor deserves the benefit of the doubt when it comes to chronic conditions. It's been an absolute failure of the medical system. And I think people are waking up.
Wow. They are. We need to go back on so many things. Okay. Go back to the racial stuff because that was crazy. I heard you talk about it on other platforms. Tell us more about that thing. That is insane.
Yeah. So it's the playbook. Whenever you have an issue, it's like, how do we weaponize the institutions of trust to influence key stakeholders? So, it's not that complicated that calling someone a racist is, or sexist or something like that, shuts up debate. So just getting into the specifics on the food stamp issue. So again, this is 2011, roughly. The ag bill was up and politicians from both parties were like, we have trillions of dollars of downstream costs from food of metabolic issues, of diabetes. We spend much more on diabetes management, the government, than the Defense Department and national defense. Our kids are really suffering. Maybe we shouldn't be, Coke should exist. We don't want to ban it, but like maybe we shouldn't be funding it billions and billions of dollars of taxpayer money on the main government nutrition program. Okay, that makes sense. So Coke, that's existential. I mean, this is one of their biggest revenue line items. So you can't really have that argument head on. But what you do is what they did is they went to the NAACP, which has done great things in American history, but it's just a pay-to-play organization now. Interestingly, also today accepting money from Ozempic, literally saying it's racist to not have government funding for Ozempic. But 11 years ago, they took money from Coke, and there was a full court press of press releases and working with their allies throughout the country, African American pastors that they were aligned with, who they also paid, to say that it is a nanny state racist policy to take this item away from underprivileged children. Of course, that's just a complete warping of the debate, because what's actually nanny state is this, corporate-owned corrupt system that funnels billions of dollars to pay for this drink, right? And if it's like a government nutrition program, and we just have no moral clarity on this, that is like nutrition. It's SNAP, supplemental nutrition. Obviously shouldn't be paying. I think alcohol should exist. I don't think it should be paid for and subsidized by government nutrition programs.
Yeah.
I enjoy a nice glass of wine. It's like that would be ridiculous. People that enjoy marijuana, like, okay, great. I'm a libertarian. Like, legalize drugs. Sugar is a highly addictive drug that is causing more deaths. If you tie the deaths from every drug in the country, you add them all up. Sugar is more than every other drug combined. What it's causing for cost and devastation. So it's like, yeah, no, I don't think Coke should be banned. Like, I might have a Coke product at points. It shouldn't be subsidized. But that was called racist. And then, going down the list, I'll give another one, right? It's like, okay, so you have, okay, I don't want to engage in that. I don't want to be called racist. And then, I'll just say this again. It's actually like hard to even wrap your head around. The American Diabetes Association at that time, we funneled money to for Coke. They put a Coke logo on their website until 2018, when they slightly modified this guidance. The American Diabetes Association said that as long as you take your drugs, if you're type 2 diabetic, you can eat whatever you want. You can drink your Coke, which is absurd because what the insulin and what the metformin does is it does lower one biomarker, but that's not the problem is you're putting inflammatory food into your body. That's why 99% of people with type 2 diabetes have another comorbidity, 80% have 3 or more. Because if you don't stop putting shit into your body, you're going to get other comorbidities.
Yeah.
So the idea that the American Diabetes Association was paid off by Coke said that small cans of Coke might be a good idea for people with blood sugar issues.
Yeah, way
you
better
can eat
than the
whatever
big
you
can.
want.
Yeah.
That's what that gets. And that confused. And I'll tell you, I just, as I said, like I had the opportunity to talk to a breakfast of 30 members of Congress about this issue. They have kids. They're good people. They got in this for the right reason. They came to DC to fight for kids. They just don't like these things are complicated. They're dealing with a lot of issues, right? And the fact the American Diabetes Association comes to their office. Oh, this is fine. Oh, Ozempic. This is the thing. It's just like food. Sugar, calorie in, calorie out. I mean, they were still being shown studies in 2011 that we were helping to fund saying sugar doesn't cause obesity. So it's like they can only do so much and choose so many issues. It's like at some point, it's like you kind of would expect, okay, the NIH isn't saying anything. They're not really stepping in on this. I guess, the American Diabetes Association said it's fine. It's like that. So that's orchestrated. That's all. That's what I help do.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear from the horse's mouth because I mean, this is your industry. I'm glad you found the light. You're a reformed lobbyist or whatever you call yourself back in the day for these big like Coke or whatever. But like they purposely make it confusing. That's another big takeaway I'm getting from you. And it's very simple. And I think we agree, like we'll do a real quick. What do you think is the problem with American diet? What are the main ingredients of the main problem?
I'm curious your reaction to this, but my framework is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier is we don't need studies. Like we don't need like this intellectualizing of the problem. Like let's just think about us as animals that have, have biological necessities and have evolved, over a long period of time. And let's look at what we're eating right now. And when you look at what we're eating right now, 75% of our diet is ultra processed food. Ultra processed food is essentially 3 things. If you look at a label, it is actually like extraordinary what Americans can do with these 3 ingredients, which is highly processed grains, sugar, and seed oils. It's like, I just tweeted about this new Sweet Dreams wellness product, premium wellness product from Post, the cereal that you're supposed to eat at night.
Yeah.
And it's like, 15 ingredients and like 11 of them are those 3 things. It's literally like 4 different types of sugar. There's like 70 names of sugar that can be on the label. We all know about added sugar, but it's crazy when you look at it, the label. And then highly processed grains, like some kind of wheat. And the key thing there is that this is new. Like it is new in the past 120 years. And the processing is taking the fiber off, which the fiber helps blunt the glucose impact and has more nutrients. So it's just like, it's this frankenfood of like very low nutrients. And then without the fiber, the glucose impact goes up. So it's almost like a hidden sugar and becomes more addictive. And then I don't think they should be called seed oils. I think it should be called industrial byproduct. Seed oils, which are, the main fat, you look at any item, even a healthy item like, hummus from Whole Foods or, a creamer, a premium creamer. It's definitely going to be canola oil, like soybean oil, sunflower oil. And these are industrial byproducts. I mean, if you want to throw up, Google how canola oil is made and like watch a YouTube video on that.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you trace this, but it's like, it goes a lot to John Rockefeller. I mean, John Rockefeller needed basically other revenue streams and found, basically made seed oils from industrial byproduct. And then is the father of the modern interventionist medical system and basically lobbied the Congress to create this new, evidence-based medicine model where you identify a condition and treat it with pharmaceuticals, which he was the largest maker of because they were also byproducts from petroleum. So he basically, this Flexner report in 1909, which still guides the framework of medical education today, was written by his lobbyist and basically said, no, nutrition is not serious. Holistic medicine is not serious. We need to have medical schools and we need to silo the body and we need to name and treat individual diseases with drugs that I make. And so he did that. And then also, interestingly, Rockefeller's folks had a huge impact on basically popularizing seed oils, which are totally inflammatory, omega-6, omega-3s. That balance is totally out of whack in the past 100 years. So anyway, those are the three ingredients I'd say. I mean, my framework for me and thinking about my new son is, if you just start there, if you just actually don't eat labels with those three ingredients, added sugar, seed oils, or processed grains, you're getting a long way there, because you're almost forced to then eat whole food, or potentially some of these snacks that, if a snack is using avocado oil, is not putting sugar in there, is grain free, those are snacks I think that they care about you a little bit more and your cells a little bit more, like, Siete chips. I mean, they're not healthy, but there's some brands that are doing some, taking a little bit more responsibility for their health. So yeah, if you that's my framework. I'm curious if that rings with how you think about it. But
that's all I've said for the past 6 years. That's absolutely all I've said. I've said it in different ways. I've tried to make it sexier. It's never sexy to talk about this because it's so obvious to me. And or people just don't want to hear it. They're like, oh, well, just animal foods are healthy and eat whole foods. And they're just like, that's not very cool message. Or, I mean, it's not sexy. And no, you just spelled out our film, like, I'm glad you're completely on the same page of this. We call it the SAD 3. It's seed oils, added sugar, and deficient grains. It's SAD. Those are the three things. We use all the statistics. 75% of our diet is these ultra processed foods. They're all made of these three things. It's like 80% of the grocery store is made up of these three things. That's it. It's it.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like there's this gaslighting too, that it's just like, oh, dietary interventions are hard. We talked about that. It's like, it gives me hope that it is so simple. It really actually is simple. Like, the USDA right now, which, sets the nutrition guidelines. I mean, to me, you talk about solutions. There's no more simple thing we can do. And this can happen tomorrow. I mean, it's up for review in 2025, but I think there should be urgent action to just change this immediately. The USDA recommends up to 10% of our diet to be added sugar. It's just like we're literally recommending the USDA guidelines, which influence guidelines around the world. We're recommending our destruction. Like again, it's just like, and this isn't like a cost increase. It's like, you get these ridiculous arguments. You get like, well, kids aren't going to eat their meals if you don't have added sugar. It's like, we should not be recommending added sugar. Kids will eat the meals. They're gonna complain because they're addicted to added sugar because we've weaponized them. It's like, it's just like all these ridiculous arguments. It's like,
or they need cheap calories. There's another argument. Oh, we need cheap calories. Or like Coke. Yeah, it was like, oh, soda, it's cheap calories or something.
Right.
How crazy is that?
Well, it's crazy because, again, we fund our destruction. So when you get to solutions, it's like, first, the government shouldn't be recommending this shit. And, point I've been making is for better or worse, Americans do listen to health officials. When the Surgeon General said to stop smoking, or it was bad in the 80s, smoking rates plummeted. Like, when we said with the disastrous 1990s food pyramid to eat more carbs, carb consumption as a percentage of the American diet went up 20%.
Red meat went down. Like whole milk went down. Eggs, they followed it. It was
Americans follow. Like the American people. Like it's like if the USDA is saying sugar's fine, which they do, it's like, what is a parent supposed to think? But if the USDA says very clearly, and this isn't like nanny state. This is just science.
Yeah. Like, we're not saying ban all sugar.
No, it's just like, make it that like right now at a birthday party, it's like weird not to give your kid sugar, but why wouldn't it be? The USDA says it's fine. If the USDA said sugar is the most dangerous substance to the metabolic health of kids, and if you feed your kid a lot of sugar, it's the most powerful indicator of their future ill health and depression, which I think is true. You shouldn't do it. And then it's like it becomes more of a stigma at the birthday party. It's like that. Like we need leadership, like to do that. And then of course we fund our destruction through our monocropping subsidies for
we got to get into that.
Your war you're on.
The root cause is the subsidies. Real quick, because you're talking about food stamps, SNAP program. Doing the film, we got deep into it and why we got to 7-Eleven servings of grains in the bottom of the food pyramid. And part of it was because of the budget. When these people back in the 50s, 60s, when there's the McGovern committee and there's these people that were doing this, they realized they came back with fresh fruits and vegetables and meat and eggs and dairy. And they're like, wait, that is expensive. We can't afford to do this because if we recommend this, we have to give this to the food stamps program. We have to supply this with our budget. And so then they're just like, oh, well, then let's subsidize. Well, we already were subsidizing grains, but it's like we can do this way cheaper. So, okay, go back to the subsidy part because that's huge.
No, you're right. And then, you go back to the 6 in your movie and just me digging into it, some good intentions. I mean, well, so Nixon was it was a huge political issue, the varying food prices under Nixon. And then there was kind of a little bit of a concern about hunger, which is valid. And there was a massive effort, driven by big food and other interests to, create a more stable, shelf-stable monocropping, system. And I just think this is kind of what's unfortunately happens. It's like maybe there were even good intentions there. We can all analyze that, but like we totally lost our way there, and it's been totally co-opted. And this all ties to our farming practices and soil, which is dying. And the fact that food now, because of these monocropping policies, which kills the biodiversity, which helped everything. With now we need pesticides. I mean, it's really like you trace how we farm and the incentives driven by tens of billions of dollars, if not more, of incentives to like have this system. The corn and the soy and the grains, that's like 90% of subsidies. Vegetables and fruits are considered a specialty crop and get 0.4% of subsidies. I mean, we have a totally warped system. And to me, it's just so simple. It's like we're going bankrupt because of downstream health costs from food. The research on, more regenerative agriculture, kind of how agriculture is supposed to be, is astounding. It's much more nutrient dense food. It's better food. It's less poison food. We could have public policy. I think there is a lot happening from the bottom up, but we could have public policy to get there. And it's just simple. It's just like, if we can feed our bodies with, food that promotes, metabolic health and cellular functioning, it's like we'd have a happier, healthier, more productive society, with much lower healthcare costs. And it frankly is kind of simple. It's like we should not be subsidizing and recommending our destruction. And we should be, empowering and working with farmers to have the right incentive structure for them, because I do think farmers are going to save the country. I think they are being, they're not happy about this monocropping, disaster. Their soil is dying. They want to do great work, but it's kind of this incentives that we're in right now are just totally bad. And anyway, I guess I'll just, kind of say there's a lot of doom and gloom here, but I think understanding these dynamics is the first step to empowerment. I hope my hope is this just as it has for me, kind of thinking about this, like leads you to the courage of like questioning your pediatrician when they say that your first food for your kid should be processed grains, and just think about whether that's evolutionarily appropriate or whether that's working. I mean, because that's what the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is paid by food companies, doctors are required, pediatricians are required to give a pamphlet saying that. When my mom had cancer, even a ton of recommendations on interventions that would have kept her in the COVID protocols, us not seeing her, peeling it back, not even effective. We ended up declining that, having to basically agree that we were putting my mom at risk, even though she was terminally ill, and we had the best, 12 days of our lives, most meaningful 12 days in our lives at home with her, where she was going to die imminently anyway, instead of her alone and dying in the COVID ward, which I think 99.99% of people, without, a former doctor, Casey, able to make that brave decision, who saw her friends treating pancreatic cancer, crying to her in break rooms at Stanford Hospital, saying that they felt like they were continually brought into surgeries that they didn't feel like were necessary because their attending surgeons' pay was based on how many interventions they did, and that, each intervention for cancer, generates hundreds of thousands of dollars for the hospital, which is their lifeblood. Which is systematic in every hospital in America. Every hospital in America, doctors are consciously breaking the Hippocratic Oath and prescribing things and doing interventions that they know are not necessary. We need to actually be very clear spoken on that. And Casey knew that. So we had the most meaningful time with our mom ever because we ignored the medical system. Again, I think that's an empowerment thing we need to have from the bottom up. And then I think it's becoming known. I mean, I think math is eventually going to catch up from the top down. I'm worried about Ozempic. I mean, Ozempic will be the costliest drug for taxpayers in American history, and be more on this path of kind of just hacks instead of understanding the root cause. But I think it's one last battle, that the system's fighting, that's, I think, going to eventually lose, because we're literally just going to go bankrupt. I mean, healthcare is growing at an increasing rate. It's growing faster than any other industry, and it's the largest industry. So it's like, we talk about healthcare costs all the time, but it's real. It's like we're going to be 40% of costs, in 15 years. It's not slowing down. It will literally bankrupt the country, and we're going to have a fat, depressed, infertile population like the movie WALL-E going around in carts. That's literally it's not really even that hyperbolic. So we have, I think inevitably it's going to have to reverse, but I am actually optimistic the more I chat with people like you and see how much work's happening in this space.
I hope so. It's definitely going down that route. I mean, we are WALL-E. We're actually going to watch Idiocracy at the Sapien Center here because some people haven't seen it, and we're turning into this world.
Yeah.
But the incentives are misaligned. This is kind of a common theme that you've been talking about. Everything you've said, it's like wildly misaligned. But it's like, how do you turn back those incentives? Because that's what drives everything. If you want something, subsidize it. If you don't want something, tax it. I heard someone say that. It's kind of a libertarian philosophy, I think, and I saw that firsthand. It's like a lot of businesses were taxed and they just left California, right? It's like, and then a lot of things that if like the true desire is to have more of it, you subsidize it, right? It makes sense. It's like, now we have all the corn, wheat, and soy. It's insane. So it's like, we're doing the wrong thing. The incentives are misaligned, and on every level, on all, like the hospital, of course, they're going to push the doctor to do all these surgeries, even though the person's going to die anyway. And they'll do the surgeries because incentives are misaligned. But how do you do that? Like, that's the biggest thing in the way. And we can have these ground up movements, like people listening to this podcast. I always joke that there's just going to be a different society created, and we're all going to be tanned and lean and healthy and awesome and educated. And there's just this WALL-E world around us. But that's a minority going away from the system. But everything is misaligned. How do you stop? How do you change those incentives so they are more aligned?
It's a key question. So it's been my progression over the past couple of years. So, a couple of years ago, kind of being radicalized on this list of the podcast, I was despondent, and I was like, "We're this is existential. We could really cease to exist because of this." I started basically having a construct in my mind that this is actually what the system. This is actually, in a way, we're seeing the good part of the system, because we are in a situation right now that a human 120 years ago would have never dreamed of in a lot of ways. I think there are a lot of benefits to modern society. We have totally lost our way, and it's existential on some of these health issues and getting away from our biological needs. But the design and beauty of the American system is that I'm writing a book, you're doing a podcast, where there's companies. It's like, it's not as if we're not able to like talk about this and fight this. And I think there's like the best-selling books in America, the most listened to podcasts in America are all like on this message from Joe Rogan on down. I mean, Joe Rogan is basically a health podcast, and is essentially a metabolic health podcast, in my opinion. On down. So I do think in a weird way things are, and what I did, inspired by that, is like, okay, got the high level mission. We all agree with that. How do we actually change incentives? How do we actually change incentives? I think a lot of people are actually working on that. There's a lot of innovation trying to be in healthcare policy and health delivery. There's a lot of food companies happening. There's a lot of, so I asked from a public policy payment perspective. So I'm like, okay, most of my friends, me, even if they're wealthy, don't like to pay outside of their health insurance. Even though health insurance is broken, they feel like they're putting a lot of money into their health insurance. And I think that's part of the problem. So I examined health insurance dollars. And I'm like, is there any way right now, without waiting for any policy change, we can use our current health benefits to buy basically food, exercise, to buy root cause habits? Because what we eventually need to do, and I do think we're going to be a much better country if this happens, is 95% of healthcare spending right now, the incentives, 95%, it's all on interventions after people are sick. If we can slant that more to incentivizing food and exercise, to making healthy food cheaper, to making regenerative agriculture cheaper, to paying somebody that's diabetic on Medicaid, you could pay them to exercise. That'd be a lot cheaper than waiting for them to get sick. So there's ways to do that. What we found, and we're really excited about TrueMed, what the company we're working on, it's HSA, FSA accounts. I never use them. They're seen as these accounts of like, for when you get sick, you can kind of save up money and buy drugs. But it's actually, most Americans have access to them. There's $140 billion sitting in them right now. It's material money. And what we found is that, and this applies to a lot of things, and hopefully this inspires other people. If a doctor writes a note saying that food or exercise is important for reversing or preventing a condition, that's a qualified medical expense according to the IRS. And a lot of things happen when you have a qualified medical expense. At a certain degree, you can write it off from taxes. It can also be used for HSA, FSA dollars. And some forward-thinking functional medical clinics actually do this. They write letters of medical necessity of how, for instance, a targeted, plan to get the right nutrients from food can help reverse PCOS or reverse autoimmune conditions. And then people can buy that food tax-free. That's $7,200 of tax-free money for a family they can put into this. And then that's, 30, 40% savings depending on your tax rate. So that's an interesting angle we found that I don't think is used enough and is vital, right? And then if you can save families, so again, $7,200, you max out in these accounts. It's very easy on your open enrollment. That's a couple $1,000 of incentives. And that starts balancing the playing field, on this problem of like going to Whole Foods and being like, oh, I gotta go for the thing with seed oils, gotta go for the non-organic, gotta go for the, it's like, well, when you can lower the price 30, 40%, that starts changing it. So that's what TrueMed is doing. And I just give that, we're very excited about this. I think it's an important implementation. I am fighting very hard and think this is going to be an important solution and company. We have an amazing team that we're building of mission-based people, but it's also on a larger level. Hopefully that gives a little bit of framework. We spent, a year and a half thinking about incentives, working with lawyers, working with doctors. There are levers of the system where you can be like, okay, can I steer that more to food? And I think there are other out there. Medicaid has a new program, on food as medicine. There's some innovative things happening in certain states on SNAP food stamps where, farmers markets and stuff, you get extra points on the food. So it's like, I think there's business opportunities to take advantage of what I think will be an increasing amount of public policy and government programs to incentivize food, because there are people waking up in food as medicine. I was just in DC. Mark Hyman I randomly ran into him. He was meeting with senators talking. I mean, there's a lot of work happening. And I just think there's opportunity in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There is another one that sounds semi-similar to TrueMed that you're doing. As one of my Sapient members is part of Crowd Health. Crowd Health is really interesting because it's kind of like a fund of like healthy people, and they use Bitcoin too, and they group together. And then if you have a medical expense, they go help you get it lower, right? They they bargain and negotiate on your behalf, and then it's like a group fund to do it. So that I just thought of that. They're not an advertiser or anything, but I know. Well, you can go to Join Crowd Health and use Sapien. I think you get like 6 months for only $99. But these are the things that are really helping. Is people are coming up with innovative solutions where it's completely outside the system, and it's just a fund of people. It's just like thousands of people that get together and fund each other's health problems if there are any, right? And then,
Yep.
So yes, I guess the solution is entrepreneurs like the people at Crowd Health, like you. I'm trying to think of any other ones. I mean, tons of people are doing stuff. Nutrition Coalition, Nuna Teicholz is doing stuff, trying to do some lobbying.
She's amazing.
Washington. She's awesome. But yeah, people are tagging from different angles, but you got to find that business model too. It's like,
right.
But there is a business model. That's the cool part. It's like, I have nose to tail. I mean, it's not a good business model because you don't make any money off of regenerative meat, but people will find it. Like there companies, big corporations are finding out that people want regenerative meat. So they are putting money into it. I remember Gabe Brown, who is a great farmer doing holistic management and all these practices. He's like, yeah, 5 years ago, big companies were consulting with him because they knew it was heading that way.
100%. And yeah, that's, I think, I'm working with Justin Mayers, who is my co-founder, who started Kettle and Fire, the leading bone broth company, and Perfect Keto. He's a really mission-driven, incredible person, and passed those two companies off. And we bonded over this idea of, I think you make a great point. It's like, this is the biggest issue in the world, is that we're being brought to our knees by metabolic dysfunction that's highly incentivized by our current broken system and the devil's bargain between food and pharma. But that's okay, and that's good, and that's a mission, and that's true, and we bonded over that. Mm-hmm. But then you've got to ask, have a framework for like, okay, what are the opportunities? It's like, clearly there's like a willingness, it seems, more and more for people to just pay for non-seed oil foods, for regenerative agriculture, for pasture-raised Vital Farms. My friend led the round there, and they're just, for their early on, and now they're just a multi-billion-dollar company, things like that. So there's like, convincing people to pay. I was very interested in like the payment levers, like current health insurance, like how do we steer more of that money to food, more money to food, less money to drugs. But yeah, you got to have a wedge, and you've got to be, I think, chip away at this by being not too idealistic on what's going to happen or what policy change is going to happen in 5-10 years, but like what's ways we can use the existing system right now to subvert the incentives. And I think there are actually a lot of ways to do that. Also, just I do think communication is really important. I mean, I do think something's happening on podcasts and books and biowearables. I think biowearables is a huge part of it too. I think we're early on where it's hard to be gaslighted, looking at, Fruit Loops saying it's a heart healthy food, when we actually have like a true understanding of what's happening in our body.
Oh, yeah. If you've ever had a CGM on, you can immediately debunk all this stuff. And yeah, I just want to type a few things to make sure people listening, most people know about all the stuff you've mentioned, Ozempic, the Tufts Food Compass study, but maybe some don't, because people come in the podcasts, in all different ways. But just to let people know, there was an actual study that they did a food scoring system, and it had Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, Honey Nut Cheerios. A lot of it was like branded cereals too. It wasn't just saying, oh, cereal. It was branded cereals above red meat, eggs, cheese. Like, it was insane. Almond milk, chocolate almond milk was what? Was that the best milk? Number one dairy source.
More than grass-fed Greek yogurt.
I mean, it's just completely wild. Like, this was an actual study funded by the NIH, right? They had something to do with it. It was at Tufts. Like, supposedly
the NIH gave it millions.
Yeah. Supposedly leading nutrition program at Tufts put this out. It is completely upside down. And then Ozempic, I'm sure people have heard of this, where it's just wild. They're recommending it to kids. They are, at least some stuff's coming out how you lose lean mass on this drug. And
big stuff.
Yeah. And you gain weight when you go off it, partly because you probably lost lean mass. Lean mass is the number one thing you don't want to lose when you're losing weight. to lose weight properly, you want to lose fat, not muscle, and you want to be supporting it with nutrient dense, animal proteins to keep your lean muscle mass as you lose fat.
Yeah, I mean, lean mass is the thing you don't want to lose if you want to be healthy too. I mean, it's just like muscle, and your muscles are glucose sponges, and it's hugely problematic if that disintegrates. It's, is a lot of the longevity folks are saying it's the number one reason we age is denigration of muscle. So, or top reason. So, huge problem. And those studies are very pronounced. The FDA through, again, the people that are on the obesity panel that make the protocols for evaluating these drugs are paid by Novo Nordisk, the maker of Ozempic, more often than not. And they made the qualifications for approval just pure weight loss, not any, they didn't even look. The FDA did not even look at the ratio of, what type of, how the weight was coming off, or whether it was through muscle loss, which it appears to be substantially from. Then of course the drug is gastrointestinal dysfunction. That's what the drug does. And, it's causing, unknown metabolic issues in the gut. And this is on the label. This is just from the makers. They actually don't know why, but there's, a warning is that there's huge metabolic dysfunction if you go off the drug, and, people are gaining the weight back, or more than anecdotally, a lot of people are gaining more weight back. So, it's hugely problematic just on its face. And then the fact that this drug, which was studied, this study I think was like less than 2 months long on kids, but it's a lifetime drug. The fact that it's being pushed right now by the American Academy of Pediatrics to be a frontline defense for the 45% of teens who are overweight or obese, it's unconscionable just because it's not a good drug, but also, of course, because this drug is $2,000 per person per month. And a lot of that cost is going to be brought by the government. And my question is, and my what I'm saying is this: what if we took half that? What if we took $1,000 a month for people that are overweight or obese? And what if we just asked what we could do with that money? We could buy them regenerative food. I mean, we could go to Whole Foods and buy them caviar. I mean, it's so ridiculous, and it would never be the system we designed to give people marginal drug. It's like, we've got to fix food. And this cynicism the medical system has about the American patient, that they, don't want to eat well or be healthy or be metabolically healthy or happy or, kind of alive and able and well for their, child's wedding and to play with their grandkids. It's like, that's just not true. I just think we're lying to people, and we have bad incentives.
Well, yeah, and if people have the wrong information, then maybe they don't want to do it because you're telling them they have to eat a salad with no dressing and like a rice cake, or, of course they're not going to do that. If you give them the good information, be like, just eat whole foods. Red meat's not going to kill you. Eggs aren't going to kill you. Like, these are healthy things.
Yeah.
Then maybe they'll do it. They'll stick to it. And there's many reasons why that I've belabored in many podcasts, but this is awesome, man. Thank you so much. And yeah, also you're talking about media too. I mean, really, that's why I'm trying to finish this film series. Like,
beautiful. I can't wait to see it.
That's going to be big because people just want to see something on Netflix
100%.
And then maybe they'll do something about it. So that's my role in all this. Thanks for what you do. And where do people find you?
Well, my company, as I said, is truemed.com. We're enabling, tax-free spending on for qualified patients, but it's an easy telehealth process to buy potentially sleep that helps you sleep, exercise, supplements, healthy food. That's our mission. Food is medicine, exercise is medicine, sleep is medicine. So truemed.com, we're launching soon with some leading merchants where you can literally just in the payment flow, pay with your HSA, FSA, on some of your leading healthy brands that we all know and love. So that's truemed.com. And then Calley Means, CALLEYMEANS on Twitter and Instagram. My life and what I wanted to do here is start this company and just really make it an advocacy organization. So I'm, trying to call out corruption as we see it. We're engaging with a number of lawmakers, both on HSA, FSA policy, which impacts our company, but on these general issues and exposing corruption. So give me a follow on Calley Means on Twitter and Instagram, and talking more about this if this resonates.
Awesome. And yeah, last thing to wrap it up is you can't cheat nature. That's what I was thinking. Like Ozempic, like all these
Right.
things, everything you said, the metformin and the statins and this, everyone's trying to cheat nature. You can't do it. You can't cheat nature with sunlight, sleep, food, movement. You can't. You have to do it or you're going to get sick eventually. Can't cheat nature. Thanks so much. We'll see you again, man.
Thank you, Brian. That was great.